Hey guys, Amanda here at Bare Bones Living. And today I have a really busy day. I just got a big grocery haul from Azure. I have made a bunch of things that I need to preserve, and I haven't had the ambition to do it. I got my booster shot on Thursday, and today's Saturday. I really wanted to get all this stuff processed yesterday, but I just was feeling very sluggish and couldn't bring myself to do it. So I really need to get this done today before things start to go bad. So I made a big roaster pan full of beef broth that I need to get processed. I still have some chicken broth that I didn't use up in recipes that I need to process. And then I want to make some grape jelly and some cranberry sauce. And then I'm hoping to also make some soups, one for dinner, and then the rest of it I would like to can. Oh, and I made pizzas the other day, and one of my pizza doughs did not rise. So I'm just gonna see if I can use that dough to make flatbreads. And I have some leftover chicken that I can make some like chicken flatbreads that I can freeze for later. But we'll see how far I can get today. So first, like I mentioned, I have this big old bowl of beef broth that I made. And I made it as I make all my other broths, and I let it cook for 3 days, and then I put it in the refrigerator, and you can see that there is a big glob of fat that accumulated on the top here, and that's what I wanted to happen because I'm going to actually take this fat off, and I'll just give this to my girls, chickens. The fat to the girls as a little treat, and then I'm going to heat this back up, the broth back up, so that I can can it. I have a bunch of jars processing in my dishwasher right now. I don't know if you can hear that, but so that's going, and I'm gonna get this fat off and this broth heated back up. Alright, so that filled up an entire little bowl full of fat, and of course there's some broth that made it in there with it, but that's okay. So now I'm just going to transfer this over to my pot, and this needs to be warm along with the jars that need to be warm in order to process this, and broth needs to be pressure canned. So I'm just going to transfer it into this big stock pot, and I will warm it back up. And I want all those good bits of flavoring and everything that's settled at the bottom here, so I'm just gonna stir it up. Try to get as much of the good stuff in there. And I'm actually gonna put it on this little burner here to slowly warm it because, like I said, I'm still processing the jars. So we're gonna actually move on to the next project. So these are 4 chicken pot pies that I made earlier this week. I actually made 5 of these, but we ate one for dinner. And I just made enough that I could make more pies. But as you can tell, they don't have tops on them because I ran out of the pre-made pie tops, pie pastries, which is fine because I wanted to make my own anyway. So this one is a complete one, and then these 3 do not have crust on them. But this is also on my to-do list, is to make pie crust for these specifically, and then also for pumpkin pies that I plan on making later this week. So what I'm going to do is I just put them in my freezer to let them freeze through. I did not, this one I did cook with our dinner because it had the top on it. So this one I'll still have to reheat when we decide to eat it. But these other ones, yes,
Do you want me to ask as you're done recording?
sure. But these other ones I still have to bake with the pastry top on them. And I will be at that point baking the pastry top. So I'm just going to put these in Ziploc bags to protect them in our freezer. It'll protect them from freezer burn and from getting anything on them, obviously. And these are basically ready-made meals, and you can pop frozen pot pies into the oven. So it makes for a nice, easy, quick dinner if you're busy. So that's just another plus. I used 2 different size pie tins, and apparently these ones just did not want to put. There we go. There we go. Alright, so these are nice and stackable. And I'll just keep these lids for other things that I want to cover and freeze in my freezer before they're actually ready to be packaged. But these can go back into my freezer for dinners on a later date. Alright, so our broth is up to temperature and our pressure cooker is heating up. So I'm going to start filling these quart jars to an inch head space and get them processing. And then I can move on to the next. Now I can't remember how many quarts this will hold, but I think I'm going to have a couple different batches that I'm going to have to do. We'll see. And I have that chicken broth in the refrigerator that I still need to warm up. So I just split that beef into 2 pints, and I have more room in my canner to fit this chicken broth. So I just heated that up real fast. And I'll add that to my canner because it's the same amount of time. I would process them the same way for the chicken broth and the beef broth. So that actually turned out to be a perfectly filled canner here with we got 5 quarts and 2 pints of broth. And then I have just a little bit left of the chicken broth that I'll just put in another jar and put in the refrigerator, but it's just maybe like a cup or something. Alright, so I will let this vent out of here. Once this starts venting out of here, I'll time it. And I'll let that vent for 10 minutes. And then I'll put my weight on and I'll actually start timing it once it gets to 10 pounds of pressure. And once it hits that 10 pounds of pressure, then I'll start a timer for 25 minutes. Because I have to pressure can these for long enough for the quarts to be canned properly, and that'll be also fine for the pints. So this is at least one project that is completely done. And while this is processing, I'm going to be making my cranberry sauce, and I'm going to be making some homemade grape jelly or jam. And I can be cooking all of that while these are processing. Okay, so I'm gonna move on to my grape jam. And what I have here is just some seedless grapes. I decided to use red grapes for this, and I just bought a big clamshell of, I think it was like 4 pounds of organic seedless grapes from Costco. And I have no idea how many cups that's going to turn out to be. So, we'll check that out. 2, 3, 4. And my recipe is 4 cups is one recipe. So that's 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, that's 2. 1, 2, 3, we'll say 4. That's about 3 times the recipe that I'm following. And then I think it's, yeah, for each one of those, it's 3, for each serving, it's 3 cups of sugar, which sounds like a lot, but this is a jam. And all we're adding is, all that this jam is grapes, sugar, and water. into my next one. Okay, so I had to go back and double check myself because I got distracted with going and getting the sugar. And I was off, that wasn't 2, that was all 3 of the recipes of sugar. So there's 9 cups of sugar in here. And then a half a cup is 1 recipe, so I'm gonna be putting in 1.5 cups of water. And then I'm gonna stir this up and bring this to a boil. And I'm gonna boil this for 10 to 15 minutes. Once I get it all incorporated and the sugar melts down. So yeah, super simple recipe. Once this boils for 10 to 15 minutes, I'm gonna use my immersion blender to blend up like half of it, or I mean, I've never made grape jam before, but I'm gonna make it to the consistency that I know my kids will eat it. And then I'm gonna cook it again for another 10 to 15 minutes, and then I'll be ready to go into jars to process. And hopefully by that time, this will be done and depressurizing so that we can take these quart jars or the broth out of here and put the jam and the cranberry sauce that I'm about to make into here. And hopefully it all works out. But that never works out for me, so we'll see what happens. So I'm gonna move on to making the cranberry sauce. And I'm gonna alter my recipe just a little bit, but we'll see how it goes. I'm just gonna put in 1 cup of sugar, and then I have some cans of organic mandarin oranges in their own juice. And instead of using water to dissolve this sugar, I'm going to use the juice from the mandarin oranges. To dissolve it, and then I'll add the actual mandarin oranges when I add the cranberries once this is all dissolved. And I actually feel comfortable using this juice because they're organic mandarin oranges, and they're in their own juice. I hate my stove. And the juice is just the mandarin orange's own juice. So I'm just gonna dissolve it in that, and then once the sugar's all dissolved, I'll add the cranberries and the mandarin oranges. And I'll start cooking that down. My grapes have started to boil, so I'm gonna set a timer for that. Okay, Google, set a timer for 10 minutes.
All right, 10 minutes. Starting now.
All right, so my sugar's dissolved. So I'm gonna add my cranberries and my mandarins. And I'm thinking about maybe adding some cinnamon to this as well. But I want to taste it first once it's cooked down a little bit. I'm going to bring this back to a boil, and this is going to boil for 10 to 15 minutes as well. Alright, so it's getting a little hot in here, but this has boiled for 10 minutes, so I'm going to blend it up to the consistency that I want for my family. And what that means in our house is smooth. My kids do not enjoy skins, as I'm sure most kids do not. So I blended that all the way. That cranberry sauce is still looking really great. I had actually turned off the heat. After my alarm went off, I turned off the heat to blend this up, and now I'm going to turn it back on and simmer it for another 10 or 15 minutes to then get it to the gel factor. And I think we're almost there on the cranberry sauce. It's kind of fun when you're making cranberry sauce because you can hear the little cranberries popping. And some people like a chunkier cranberry sauce, but again, my family does not. I am a texture person. My kids are as well. And so I'm just smashing all the little cranberries. And I haven't added any cinnamon yet, and I also haven't tasted it yet. I just kind of wanted all the flavors to meld and cook down. Before I started monkeying with flavors. Okay, Google, stop. So that means that's been 10 minutes on this cranberry sauce, and the longer that you cook it, the thicker it'll get. And so I'm gonna keep cooking it. I want it to gel up a little bit more. Okay, Google, set an alarm for 10 minutes.
3:23 p.m. Set.
I'm going to turn it down a little bit though. And I will at this point taste it because it's had some time to meld. It tastes really good. Kind of torn whether or not I should add any cinnamon at this point. I mean, I like cinnamon and cinnamon is good for you. But I don't know how drastically it's going to change this. Flavoring. Maybe I'll just put in a little bit. Don't mind my pickle jar of seasonings. I buy everything bulk, as you guys saw from Azure, so I put it into smaller jars to fit it in my pantry. I think I'll just let this cook for the cranberry sauce cook for another 5 minutes or so. And then I'll let it be. It's already thickening up really nicely. Well, I definitely taste the cinnamon, that's for sure. Oh, that was a half a tablespoon, that's why. I meant to only put in a teaspoon. Whoops. Oh well. Tastes more festive that way. Okay, well, taking a time out from this real quick, Mike just got back from picking up the deer that we had processed. Last year we processed the deer ourselves, but it was a really small deer, and we actually had space in our garage. But as our family has grown and we've accumulated more things as the kids have grown, our one-car garage has been accumulated by a bunch of stuff, and we have no room to process our own. So we had this one processed for us, and everything is nicely packaged, and we got some meat sticks that we tried, and they are delicious. This one's a teriyaki. We got mild teriyaki and cheddar, but they come ginormous like this. And I don't know about you, but I like a meat stick you can actually eat. And so I'm just gonna chop these up into a more desirable size, and we have a vacuum sealer. And we'll package these up and freeze them for later consumption. Because I think that these would be delicious with a Bloody Mary, and I clearly cannot have a Bloody Mary currently. So these will be a next spring thing. And this won't take us long at all to do. But my cranberry sauce and my jelly are ready for canning, and the canner is empty. So I'm ready to move on to the next step of the process. So that's all the teriyaki. I'm just gonna get those packaged up in probably like 4s or something like that, or 6, I don't know. And label them as teriyaki, and then I'll do the rest and label them as well. Alright, so that took me a while to get to the gelling point. And I actually had to add some pectin to this jam to get it to gel up. I couldn't get it to 220 degrees to gel naturally. It was just boiling too much, and I didn't want it to boil over. So I just added some pectin and I tested it, and I'm happy with that. So I have my water bath starting to heat up, and I'm gonna fill up these jars. And it's gonna look very soupy as I'm filling these, but it will set over time as well. It sets as it cools, and it sets over time. And it can take over 24 hours for some jams to set. So I'm not concerned about it. And I need to fill this to a 1/4 inch headspace. And I'm choosing to fill these in pints because my boys like grape jam. So we'll have no problem going through a pint at a time. Yeah, I can keep going with that one. Now I'll get these loaded up while I wait for this to start boiling and get these cranberries all set up. Alright, this is heated back up and ready. And I don't know if this is going to make 1 pint or 2 pints, but we'll see. It's not going to make a whole lot. Okay, so I'm gonna let this come to a boil, and then I'll start processing time on it. Again, 10 minutes once it's gently boiling. And then this will be another task completed. Thank you guys for stopping by today and joining in on our journey here at Bare Bones Living. We'll catch you on the next one.